All right, let's talk about 5 costly mistakes you could be making with your required minimum distribution. Now, you might be asking, what is a required minimum distribution, or a RMD? Well, a required minimum distribution is a required distribution from your IRA, your 401k, or your 403b at a certain age. Now, the Secure Act 2.0 recently passed and moved the required minimum distribution age from 72 to 73. Now, it does increase to 75 in the year 2033. So if you're going to be 73 before the year 2033, or you're going to be 75 after the year 2033, you want to make sure you watch this video so that you don't fall into one of these costly mistakes within your required minimum distribution. Now, what accounts are you required to take a required minimum distribution from? Well, traditional IRAs, rollover IRAs, 403bs, 401k, any pre-tax, tax advantageous accounts. Now, you do not have to take a required minimum distribution out of a Roth 401k starting in the year 2024 or a Roth IRA. So required minimum distributions are only required on IRAs, 401ks, and 403bs. All right, the first costly mistake you could be making with your required minimum distribution is actually delaying your required minimum distribution to the following year. The law allows you to take your required minimum distribution, your first required minimum distribution, by April 1st of the following year that you turn 73. So if you turn 73 this year, you are required by April 1st of next year to have taken your first required minimum distribution. The only problem with that is if you wait to next year to take your required minimum distribution, now you've got to take a second required minimum distribution for being 74. So if you take 2 in the same year, that's going to increase your taxable income. That's going to increase the distribution that's coming out of your IRA. And if the market's going down, you're actually taking out more than you actually need to. So instead of waiting until the following year for your first required minimum distribution, make sure you take it by 12/31 of the year you turn 73. That's going to help you with this first costly mistake with your required minimum distributions. The next mistake that you could be making with your required minimum distribution is forgetting to take a required minimum distribution out of your IRA, your 401k, your 403b, or your TSP. You got to make sure that you take your required minimum distribution because the IRS has a harsh penalty if you don't do it. Let's say that your required minimum distribution is $10,000 and you forget to take it. The IRS says we're going to penalize you 25% of what you did not take. That's $2,500. You do not want to pay the IRS $2,500 because you forgot to take your required minimum distribution. Now, the IRS is lenient if you make up and you do take your distribution, even though it's late, they'll reduce your penalty to 10%. Now, that's a reduction from a 50% penalty that they used to give, but still, who wants to pay 25% or even 10% for just forgetting to take your required minimum distribution? Put it on your calendar, put it in your phone, make sure you take your required minimum distribution so you don't pay a 25% penalty. All right, the third mistake that you could be making that could cost you thousands of dollars with your RMD, your required minimum distribution, is mixing plan types. And this is the most confusing. And so I want to go through this in more detail so you understand exactly where your required minimum distribution has to come from and how you can do that. So let me give you an example. Let's say we have a person, her name is Sherry. And Sherry has 3 different types of retirement accounts. Sherry has an IRA, Sherry has a 401k, and Sherry has a 403b. Now, these are 3 different retirement accounts. Now, they're all pre-tax, so all of this money does need a required minimum distribution. Now, in Sherry's case, when she turns 73, she's required to take an RMD from each specific account. So she has to take an RMD out of her IRA, she has to take an RMD out of her 401k, and she has to take an RMD out of her 403B. You cannot combine the amounts and then take a specific RMD out of her IRA for all three, because these retirement accounts are still in their current form. They all require their each individual required minimum distribution. So what would be the best option for Sherry? When Sherry gets closer to retirement, once she gets into that required minimum distribution age, if she's not working at these companies that have a 401k or 403b, the best option for her is to roll those into her IRA, or roll them into IRAs separated from this IRA if she wants them managed differently. So let's use the same person, but a different example. Let's say she rolls all three of these out into IRAs. So we have the original IRA, we have the second IRA that was the 401k, we'll call this IRA 2, and let's say we have IRA number 3, which came from her 403b. So now she's 73 years old. We have three separate IRAs. Sherry has two options. She can take a required minimum distribution out of each individual IRA account, or let's say her RMD is $10,000. So she has to take $10,000 for her required minimum distribution. If she wants, she could actually just take that from one account. So she could say, okay, for all three of my IRAs, my RMD is $10,000, and I'm just going to take it out of this IRA, or I'm going to take it out of this IRA, or I'm going to take it out of this one. You can do that when you have IRAs, but you cannot do that when you have multiple different retirement accounts. So make sure if you have an IRA, an old 401k that's still in 401k form, an old 403b that's still in 403b form, a TSP, make sure you're taking that specific RMD, or you'll face the IRS penalty of 25%. All right, the fourth mistake that could cost you thousands with your required minimum distribution from your IRA, your 401k, or your 403b is combining required minimum distributions with your spouse. Each individual person, if they have individual IRAs, must take an RMD for themselves from their IRA, 401k, or 403b. Let me give you an easy example. So we have Sherry, and Sherry is 73, and Sherry has an IRA and a 401k that's old. She's no longer working, but the 401k is still in 401k form. Sherry is married to John, and John has an IRA and he has a 401k from his old job, and he's retired. Both are the same age, both are 73 years old. Now, Sherry's RMD is $10,000. John's RMD is $5,000, which means as a couple, they have to take $15,000 as a required minimum distribution. The mistake would be saying, okay, we've got to take $15,000. Let's just take it out of John's IRA. Let's take all $15,000. You can't do that. Or let's take all $15,000 out of Sherry's 401k. You can't do that. You must take the required minimum distribution for the specific individual. So Sherry has to take the $10,000 for her IRA and 401k, and John has to take the $5,000 for his IRA and 401k. Now you can take more than that. It's a minimum distribution, but you cannot commingle. Now let me give you a little more information. Let's say that John passes away. So John is deceased, and Sherry inherits his IRA and 401k. She takes them as her own, as his spouse. Same example. Let's say in his IRA and 401k, the RMD is $5,000 and Sherry's is $10,000. John's deceased, so Sherry's now the owners of these. If for her IRA, she wants to combine the RMDs and take them out of one single IRA, she can do that now, because John's deceased and she's taken over the IRAs as her own. That's the only time you can do that. But if both spouses are living, you cannot combine required minimum distributions. Fifth, retirement required minimum distribution mistake that could be costing you thousands of dollars withdrawing the wrong amount for your required minimum distribution. You need to know how much you have to withdraw for your required minimum distribution. And let me tell you something. That withdrawal is going to change on a yearly basis. It's going to increase. The percentage that you must take out every year increases. Now, how the IRS and how your custodian calculates how much you are required to take out as a required minimum distribution is based on two factors. The first factor is your age. So let's keep using the same example. We've got Sherry. So her age is 73. So the first factor that your custodian is going to use to calculate your RMD is your age, 73 years old, okay? The second factor is going to be the value of your IRA, your 401k, your 403b, your SEP IRA, the value of those on 12/31 of the previous year. So let's say that Sherry's 73 and the year is 2024, okay? Her RMD is going to be based on the value of her accounts on 12/31/2023. So it gives you 12 months to take that distribution. Now, come 12/31 of 2024, these balances are going to be different based on market loss or market gain, based on distributions, whatever. And so the amount that you have to take out for your required minimum distribution is going to change. So if Sherry's RMD for year 2023 is $10,000, if her accounts grow, now she might have to take out $12,000 the next year. And if she has her RMD on like a set distribution of $10,000, she's going to be short $2,000 for the year 2024, which means a 25% penalty from the IRS. So you just want to make sure that you understand how much you have to take out and know that it's going to change every year. All right. Hey, thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye.